IFP Leader Mangosuthu Buthelezi is not standing for re-election. His party performing well during last week's election and is now the official opposition in KwaZulu-Natal. Let's pick up the political thread with reporter Dasen Thathiah. Dasen, good afternoon to you. So it seems the IFP has again surprised its detractors. How was this assessed and analysed today by Mr. Buthelezi?
Well, Prince Mangosuthu Buthelezi, a very happy man indeed. In fact, you would have been forgiven for thinking that the media briefing that we were at this morning was actually a party, mind the pun. There was even champagne, non-alcoholic of course, and it was just a celebratory mood. And that's because they've managed to regain some ground here, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal, the province that the party once governed. And it was, there was a downward slide over the past few years, but finally they've managed to pick up those numbers, and they say that this should then show these detractors that the party is actually not dead, and if anything, it's going to get back to where it once was. In fact, take a listen to what Buthelezi had to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, please don't write us off in the Gauteng legislature either, because of our one-man team. Our voice is strong because it's backed by South Africans. I think I can be forgiven for borrowing that tried phrase, watch the space. Great things are coming. Regarding the sixth parliament, I would address a frustrating rumor started by Mr. Bongani Hans and taken up on social media. For Mr. Hans and I and the IFP are, of course, favorite Bitnoy. Just days before the election, Mr. Hans came up with the notion that I've done about 10 on my decision to retire, and this is nonsense. I've very publicly and very clearly indicated what will happen, and when it will happen, and how it will happen, so there's no surprise whatsoever that I'm returning to Cape Town next week to be sworn in as a member of Parliament. Until the IFP holds its national elective conference, I'm still the president of the IFP, and I must fulfill the responsibilities of that position.
Okay, Dasen, so back to Parliament, but any further word on his retirement? Recently reported, I think, that he was undecided.
That's right. In fact, you would have just heard there towards the end of that interview that he, or at least that video clip, that he was clarifying that position, basically saying that there was a bit of misinformation in that regard. And in fact, he had been asked, and this is what the other party members had said as well, that he'd been asked by the other members of the party to stay on. So one thing is clear, that he will no longer be the president of the party within the next 2 months or so, and that's when their elective conference is meant to be held. There isn't a date yet, but we're told that it will be before July, but he will in fact be going to Parliament. So in actual fact, he's saying that there's no need for any clarity in that respect, because he had never said that he was leaving at all. So he'll definitely be back in Parliament. And let's just listen to another clip from that press briefing.
I will not stand for re-election at the IFP's next elective conference, and that the next elective conference will be held as soon as practically possible. I have not nominated a successor, Mr. Chris Mackay, and I will not nominate a successor, Mr. Chris Mackay, because this is not how it works. The IFP is a democratic party with a constitution and rules of procedure. Our leaders are elected by the rank and file of our members through their delegated representatives at a national conference.
Mangosuthu Buthelezi ending that report by Dasen Thathiah in Durban.